This episode of the Europuck podcast is brought to you by DraftKings. Basketball has officially entered the second half of the regular season. This is the time for teams to prove if they are contenders or pretenders. And DraftKings, the leader in one-day fantasy sports, is giving new players a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. That's right, folks. Get in on the action now to claim your free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes when using code THPN during sign-up. Playing daily fantasy basketball is really simple, guys. Just pick your lineup, stay under the salary cap, and see how your team stacks up against the competition. After all, every dunk, steal, or assist means so much more when the player doing it is earning you points for your fantasy lineup. Download the DraftKings app now and use promo code THPN during sign-up to get a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. That's code THPN for a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes, for a limited time only at DraftKings. A big thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode. Hello, bonjour, hello, hi, heya, and privyet, hockey fans. Welcome back to the Europuck podcast, the show where two Brits talk all things European hockey as part of the Hockey Podcast Network and brought to you by DraftKings. My name is Hayden, or Man Rush, as you can see up there on the video version of this episode, and joining me once again, I would be surprised if anybody thought it would be somebody different at this point, it's Chris Gadsby. Hey, Chris.
Hello, yes, good afternoon, morning, evening, whenever you're listening to this.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. If you're listening to it, we're happy you're here. How you doing, Chris?
Yeah, not too bad, although I did make a bit of a bad discovery this morning, which is that all of my pairs of socks, bar about two, have got holes in.
Oh.
Yeah, I need new socks.
You're getting to that point, aren't you? Yeah, it's like you get to that point in the run. You're like, oh, I've worn all these socks out, and then whenever you wear them, because there's always that emergency situation where you think, right, I need a pair of socks. I don't have time to go out and get new ones. All the ones without holes already in the laundry. I need to wear this pair of socks. And then you could feel the shoe that you're wearing underneath on your toes. You're like, this is the worst.
I mean, I don't even really have that because don't leave the house at all.
Yeah,
so, yeah. It's just you're just walking around and you just feel this patch of the laminate flooring or the carpet. It's
The worst bit about that is when you have that situation, but you also have a dog that leaves loads of water on the floor after it's had a drink, after it's gone for a walk, and you're like, I'm walking through the kitchen I'm having a great time, I'm gonna get myself some food, and then I feel like all this moisture just suck up into my sock. I'm like, oh no.
I had a similar thing when we had a bit of a flood in our utility room, and it was dark, and I opened the door and I just put my foot down and I went, that's not good. And my whole foot just got soaked. I was like, oh no.
That's not the floor I'm used to. But also speaking of getting round to something, you have something on your list for a while, like you with the socks. You need to get round to it. It's just something you need to get round to. I've been meaning to get myself a clothes rail from IKEA for the last 4 weeks, because I need somewhere to put my jerseys, Chris. I've got too many of them now. I love them. I love them all very dearly. They're like my own children. I love them so much. But I'm at the point, I've had several of them hanging up on the walls in my room, which has looked really nice, but sort of every couple of weeks, another one has fallen down, and then another one's fallen down, and then another one's fallen down. I need to get a rail.
Isn't that more to do with your DIY skills rather than jerseys themselves?
Probably. Oh yeah, no, it's not the jerseys' fault at all. No, you can't fault the jerseys. It's my own stupidity, Chris. Come on.
This is where Hayden gets his own house and just has a walk-in jersey wardrobe, and you just walk in, there's just jerseys around three sides.
Yeah, so every single jersey in hockey history that's ever been made. Hayden's Hockey Jersey Museum. I love it. Let's get a Kickstarter going for that, Chris.
£5 entry.
Well, it's better than the prices for the Elite League webcasts, hey, Chris?
Oh, here we go. We're starting already. We'll get onto that.
We'll get onto that. We could talk about it now if you want to start the podcast. We could talk about it later. What do you think, Chris?
No, let's go later.
Okay, sure.
let's talk about all of the sweeping that's been going on around Europe.
Indeed. So, similar to last week, we're going to take you through all of the playoff scores around Europe, take you through the regular season scores after that. We've got a bit of news regarding some of the leagues. The French league's back up again. You know, they've reared their heads again. And the Norwegian league, we've got something to say about the rest of their season. We're also going to
disappeared with its head.
Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of dug its head in the sand. We've also
that's
got
the phrase I wanted.
Exactly. Yes, that's why I'm here, Chris. I like to finish off your little phrases, and we get it all figured out, don't we?
I should be good with words. It's kind of how I make my living. But, you know.
Me too, but you've seen how terrible I am. I had to record the ad read 3 times before we started. So, yeah, and then we're going to talk about the Elite League, and they've just announced their package, their webcast package, and the prices. And we've got a few things to say about that. And then Chris has got a quiz. So it's very similar to last week, but we've added a few little extra bits in here and there.
I've outdone myself with the tenuousness of the link this week as well.
Oh, so. I love it. I'm looking forward to getting every single question wrong, Chris. But anyway, let's move on to the scores around the playoffs in Europe. And we'll start, of course, like we do every week, the Gagarin Cup playoffs, 2021 Gagarin Cup playoffs. And we actually have a team that's made it to the Eastern Conference Finals as of about 10 minutes before we started recording this. Akbars Kazan have taken a 4-0 sweep of Salavat Yuleyev, the 4th seed. So as Chris mentioned to me just before we started, Kazan haven't lost a game in the playoffs yet. They are looking primed and ready to compete for a championship, aren't they, Chris?
Yeah, they really are. So they swept Torpedo Nizhny Novgorod in the first round 4-0. Now they've swept Salavat Yuleyev Ufa. I mean, it's probably unlikely that they'll sweep the conference finals because, I mean, at the moment, it looks like they might be coming up against Avangard Omsk, who are a really strong side in themselves. They are, just have a look, Avangard. Yes, they lost the first one by 5-2, but they shut out Metallurg yesterday. So, you know, they're on the up, and then CSK Moscow are leading, and SK St. Petersburg are leading as well. So, kind of the KHL playoffs for me at the moment is far more boring than some of the other leagues where, because particularly when it comes to the playoffs, in a league where I don't have, you've got your SK St. Petersburg allegiances. I have literally no allegiance to this at all. Okay. And I would love it in here. I know it's obviously can't happen now, but I always go for the underdog. So I'd have loved it if we'd have had like conference finals of like 8th versus 7th in each side. But whereas what I mean when I say boring is the fact that at the moment, like the top 4 seeds all went through in the first round.
Yeah.
And at the moment, the top 2 seeds are leading all the way in the second round. So, but you know, that's kind of the flip side, of course, is that's what you want to see. Ideally, you want to see CSK Moscow take on Akbars Kazan in the finals because, you know, they led the league all year and, you know, deserve to be there.
I feel like, Chris, we need to find you a KHL team to support by the end of this podcast season. And I feel like if you want to go for one that would really irritate me and make you feel far more superior to me, just pick CSK in Moscow. They always beat St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
They always beat St. Petersburg.
I might just do like a random generator.
Yeah, good idea.
I'll do a random generator of the 7 that are still in it.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. Just like, I mean, like, could you imagine if 10 years from now you're like really heavily invested in the KHL and somebody asks, oh, Chris, like, how did you get interested in the KHL? Like, how did you choose whichever team to support? And you just go, oh, I just picked a random number generator about a decade ago and just kind of went from there, really. But the one thing I will say about Akbars Kazan and the fact that they've made it to the Gagarin Cup finals quicker than, the conference finals, I should say, faster than any other team in the league this year. They were 1 win away from winning the regular season. Obviously, CSK Moscow took it in the final day of the regular season, like we mentioned at the time. But also, Salavat Yuleyev were a strong team. Like, yeah, they were the 4th seed in their conference, and obviously there were 3 other teams above them in the standings by the end of the regular season, but they had some pretty solid scorers. Some might argue that Salavat were a little bit more top-heavy than, say, some of the other teams still in the playoffs, but the fact that Salavat, who they only lost a single game in the first round against Tractor, which was, you know, a 4-5 seed competition, and the fact that, you know, they didn't manage to get a single win, it's kind of, it very much reminds me of the Lokomotiv Jokerit first round series, where, you know, it's 4-0 to Lokomotiv, and you would expect Jokerit to kind of put up a bit of a stronger fight given their track record, and Salavat is very similar to that in that way. So That's really interesting. I saw you chuckling there, Chris. What are you laughing at?
Oh, I did a random name picker and it came up with CSKA. So.
Hey, well, enjoy rubbing it, enjoy rubbing it in once the Western Conference is done and the CSKA are through to the finals again, because it's always the way it goes, right, KHL fans. So yeah, Omsk and Magnitogorsk. I would say don't count Magnitogorsk out. Yeah, obviously
No.
Metallurg took the first game, but as we've seen with some of the other brackets in Europe so far, some of the teams that are leading after 3 games, they don't always stick with the lead by the end of the series, and that's the reason why it's a 7-game series and not a 3-game or a 5-game series. CSK.
Well, what you've got to consider with Metallurg is they won the first game 5-2. They lost the second one 2-1, but that was only after 14 minutes of overtime.
Right.
So they lost. So it was 1-1 there. But like I say, they kind of dominated in the first game. It was overtime in the second game. Yes, they got shut out in game 3 at home, which is not great. But, as you said, don't count them out because they've won one. They've been chuffing close in the second one.
Yeah.
So they could easily get some more wins.
Absolutely, and I think that's very much a theme that goes through for the 2 Western Conference brackets as well. The fact that Lokomotiv actually shut out CSKA in the first game of the series to take a 1-0 lead. Obviously, they're down 2-1 now because Moscow have managed to pick up the next 2 wins. But
yeah, it's 0-0 at the moment early on in the second. So
okay.
We'll have... It's similar to what we've had before. Like game 4 will be done by the time we finish this, so I'll jump back to it to give a live update on that.
Good idea, because I mean we might be in a situation where it basically becomes a best of 3 series, or I mean CSK are 1 game away. So
yep.
And the fact that Lokomotiv were able to hand Moscow their first loss of the entire postseason and shut them out, like that's a big character win for a team like Lokomotiv, who. I mean, the only 2 games they've lost so far for themselves are the ones against Moscow as well. So they're 2 teams that swept their opponents, and you would expect it to be a little bit close because, they're 2 tough teams. Now, obviously, I spend a lot of time talking about St. Petersburg because, like Chris mentioned, they are my go-to team. The one thing I will say, though, is it's been a close series. Like, it could very easily be 2-1 in Moscow's favour. It's the second and the third seed. You would expect it to be close, very similar to the Omsk-Magnitogorsk series. But what I will say is the fact that St. Petersburg are 2 games to 1 up on a team that had 2 of the top 5 scorers in the entire KHL this year, including the top scorer. They had Vadim Shipachov and Dmitry Yaskin, who have both had a fantastic time together since they joined up last year in the 2019-20 season, carried that on this year. Dmitry Yaskin has 4 goals in his last 5 games in the postseason. Like, they're rocking and rolling, but the fact that St. Petersburg have managed to take a series lead against a team like that, and one of those games being a 1-0 shutout, it just goes to show you, like, yeah, the first, second, third, and fourth seeds, it's a boring playoff matchup, and it's kind of what you would expect, or it's very routine. But we're seeing the teams that, for want of a better term, deserve to be there because they do have the better rosters. All of these teams have a wealth of experience of going deep into the postseason. Most of these organizations within the last 10 years have won a Gagarin Cup championship at least. I mean, I think Lokomotiv and Avangard are the only 2 that haven't out of the, final 6 or 7 opponents. So it goes to show you that winning those championships, getting those experienced players, having consistently deep runs into the postseason, it gives these players a chance to really know what it takes to regardless of whether you go down a game in the series or regardless of what happens in 1 or 2 games, playing the entire 7-game series is important, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, and I think again that's what you were saying. It brought up an interesting point in my memory there that yes, SK St. Petersburg are the number 2 seed, but don't forget that they're only there because they won their division.
Exactly.
If you look at the main standings throughout the whole of the Western Conference, they were actually only 4th.
Yeah.
Dynamo Moscow did get an extra win over them. The other thing to say in that is that Dynamo Moscow, they, as you said, they took game 1 by 4 goals to 1. That was really convincing. Yes, they got shut out in game 2, but it was only a 1-goal game. And it was a power play goal with 2 minutes and 13 seconds to go. It took them the whole game to break through Moscow's defence. And it needed a power play right near the end of the game. And then they won by 3 goals to 2 yesterday, but it needed overtime. It's not as though those 2 wins have come easy to them in any way, shape or form. So I would not surprise me for the series to get tied at 2 tomorrow, or maybe even for Moscow to go 3-2 up come Friday.
Absolutely, and then the opportunity for St. Petersburg to tie that up, and it goes to 7 games. I feel like it's going to be a very flip-floppy series, very similar to, in my opinion, what I think is going to happen with the Avangard Magnitogorsk series. We might be wrong on that, of course. But speaking of overtimes, Chris, I mentioned to Chris before we started recording this, I saw a tweet from the KHL themselves. By the way, it's Tuesday, the 23rd of March. I should probably point that out. So that's why all of the results are as they stand right now. But I noticed a tweet from the KHL saying that for the first time in the KHL's history, every single series, every single bracket, every single series of every round so far in the Gagarin Cup playoffs, every single one has had at least one game go to overtime. So that's 8 different brackets in the first round, 4 different brackets in the second round. So that's 12. 12 different brackets, and every single one has required at least one overtime period. So it really goes to show you how the disparity in some of the teams in the KHL in years past, the gap's already starting to close. And the hard salary cap has only been enforced for 1 season, so we could really see how competitive things are going to get in the next couple of years, couldn't we, Chris?
Yeah, we really could. And I think now that we've had 12 brackets that needed overtime, I want all 15 to. I want there to be an overtime game in the 2 conference finals and then the Gagarin Cup finals, just so that it completely rounds it out, because that would be a really good stat. And I think that really shows, as we've said, yes, you look at it straight off the back and you've got 3 sweeps in round 1 and a sweep in round 2, but it just shows why. And I think us having a look at these in closer detail is invaluable to us and the listeners, the viewers, and people around Europe, because you can't always just take the figures at face value.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good point. The fact that, there have been plenty of 4-0 sweeps or 5-game series in the first round, but a lot of them were decided by 1 goal, or it might have been a 2-goal differential, but that second goal was an empty netter with 2 seconds left to play in the game. So, there's a lot of different. The context is so important, and I think you might get your wish this year, Chris, with the 15 playoff series, because obviously it's more likely to go to overtime the deeper you get into the postseason, and you're left with the best of the best. So then there's very little between them. But anyway, that's the KHL as it stands right now. I would imagine the second round would be done by the time we record next week's episode, so we'll be able to talk about the final 4 and the results and kind of have a little chat.
You would believe so, because they're alternating the days. So you've got the fixtures that are on 2-1, they're playing Thursday. So no, hang on. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Friday. They'll play Sunday, Tuesday. So if it goes to, so it's done.
Yeah.
So by next week it will be done, and we'll have our 4 conference finals.
We'll have the final 4. Okay, so that's the KHL. Oh, indeed. So we've got several other playoffs to look at. We'll look at the Czech Extraliga next, because that's kind of the next highest level of competition in Europe that is in the playoffs so far. Now, obviously, last week we mentioned the best of 5, the best of 5 playoff brackets in the first round. We obviously mentioned Olomouc taking a 3-0 sweep of Pulsen, the 12th seed beating the 5th seed. We have some updates regarding the quarterfinals or the second round of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. However, it's very much what you would expect. It's very much following the KHL's path as it stands right now. Sparta Prague, the 1st seed, are 2-0 up in the series over Olomouc, the 12th seed. Liberec is currently 3-0 up over Mountfield HK. Osleri Trinec is currently 2-0 up over Kometa Brno. And Mlada Boleslav is currently 3-0 up over Pardubice. So basically, 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th seed are all leading, with none of them having lost a game so far. I would imagine there might be a game or 2 won by the lower seeds. But, I mean, as things stand now, it's going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4 through, isn't it, Chris?
Yes, there's a couple of games today. As you said, as it stands at the moment, we're on for a load of sweeps. One game at the moment, Pardubice are actually 3-1 up against Mlada Boleslav at the end of the second period. So they might get a game back there. And then Liberec are playing Mountfield HK later on tonight, so that could sweep as well. But it won't be done by the time we finish with this podcast, but I'll let you know the live score as we get to the end of that. But yeah, I mean, as I said here, there were some surprises in the first round, but the quarterfinals just aren't surprising us in any way, shape or form. top seeds winning each series. As I said, every single one is on course for a sweep, although Pardubice have got something to say about that.
Yes, and they might decide, you know what, we're going to come from 3-0 down and we're going to take out the third seed. Why not? Crazy things have happened, right? But it is also worth mentioning that it is very common for the first, second, third, fourth seeds to make it deep into the postseason because, you know, they've proven throughout the regular season that they are the stronger teams. They've managed to finish so high up in the standings. So whether it's a case of they're riding the momentum of having a successful season, where they've put together a roster that's found them success and that snowballs into the playoffs as well, you would expect the top teams in the regular season to go on to produce strong performances in the playoffs. It's usually the way it goes. So obviously
you would. Yeah. I mean, it's like if you take Sparta Prague, they finished with 108 points. Olomouc finished with 59. Like Sparta nearly doubled their points tally in the season. Because the only one that's a bit of a surprise is the Liberec Mountfield HK. Only 4 points separated them in the regular season. Yet, Mountfield find themselves having swept Litvinov in the first round. Find themselves on the wrong end of a 3-0 deficit to Liberec, and in fact, Liberec have shut them out in the last 2 games.
Wow.
Winning the last 2 games by 3-0 after what was a much closer first matchup where they needed 16 minutes of overtime to decide that opening game. Liberec just right off the back of that, a 3-0 shutout in game 2 and a 3-0 shutout last night in game 3. As I said, they're playing game 4 starting in half an hour as we're recording this. So they could well go for the kill there. And that's, imagine if they sweep Mountfield, who of course have got CHL experience as well, but then imagine if they shut them out 3 games in a row, way to kick a team when they're down and just not let them score for 3 whole games potentially.
Yeah, and it just kind of goes to show you that the Mountfield would have thrown everything they could at the net, but they just no matter what they tried, they just couldn't get a goal, let alone win a game. But it also goes back to the conversation that we had last week, I think, Chris, discussing sort of the teams that have a first round bye. Does that help or hinder them compared to the teams that have to fight in that first round? And you could make the argument that so far it's helped every single one of these teams because it's given them a chance to rest up and they've done well. Obviously, Pardubice might take a game back, but they're still 3-1 up in the series. So the fact they go for it.
I was just going to say, I'm looking at the stats for these 2 shutouts now. So in game 2, they held them to 23 shots. In game 3, they held them to 21 shots.
Wow.
So the defense is really kind of kicking in for Liberec. And I think it's one of these things where it's almost the mindset. And I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the draft in the Elite League is the mentality of, we don't need to score 6 goals if we can stop you scoring any. We only need to score 1 or 2 if we can, shut you out.
Yeah. So it's certainly a strategy that, I mean, you always hear it, defense wins championships, right? So being able to keep the shot totals down, being able to have a netminder that can make that key save when you need it most to kind of swing the momentum of the game, it's important, and it has an impact on maybe not just the game that you're playing, but the rest of the series. So far as it looks in the Czech Extraliga, the teams that got that first round bye, it helped them out very well. Let's see if that continues for some of the series that have only played 2 games so far. I guess we'll have to check back next week and see if Olomouc manages to spark a comeback against Sparta Prague. That'll be exciting. Let's move on to the Austrian League, the Ice Hockey League. Take a look at their standings and their playoff results so far. So we have, I believe we have several different, I think we're just waiting on one more result to be had.
They are playing tonight as well.
Okay.
So again, that could finish tonight, but will definitely be done by the time we record next week, which is the Salzburg against Dornbirn series, where Salzburg are currently leading by 3-2. Don't forget as well, they've got all the momentum in that one because they went 2-0 down in that series, losing 2-0 and 6-3 in games 1 and 2. Coming off the back of that, they've won 4-1, 6-4, and then they shut Dornbirn out on Sunday night, winning by a 1-0. So it's a lower one there. But Dornbirn, they've got to win this game to keep the series alive. Salzburg coming in off it, having won 3 straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking about it last week, weren't we, Chris? The fact that Dornbirn had taken a 2-0 lead in that series, and we thought, oh, okay, we might actually have an upset here in this series. But the fact that we've got the first seed Bolzano taking a 5-game series victory over the Bratislava Capitals, you had Klagenfurt taking a 5-game series victory over the 8th seed Villach, then you had the Vienna Capitals taking a 4-0 sweep, the only sweep of the first round against Ferrover AV19. So the first seed, the second seed, and the fourth seed have all secured themselves a place in the second round. Then it's just a question of whether the third seed is going to join them, and once again we'll have our third straight league that we're talking about, the 1-2-3-4, or we'll have the 1-2-4-7. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But
yeah, I mean, it's looking at the details again. So just look at the Vienna Ferrovar series. Ferrovar, we knew from that winners and losers stage that they just did not show up once the regular season finished.
Yeah.
And they have taken that through into the playoffs. They scored 3 goals in 4 games.
Oh,
that's
ouch.
all they did. They lost 6-1 in game 1. Game 2 was tied to losing 3 goals to 2. And then they were shut out in the last 2 games. They scored 3 goals in 4 games.
Oh.
Like, that is just nowhere near good enough. And then you flip it to the other end of the spectrum, where you've got Bolzano against Bratislava, where all of us just expected that Bolzano would just walk over them completely.
Yeah.
And Bratislava, they took game 1 by 2 goals to 1. We thought, oh, hello.
Yeah.
But even to be fair to them here, like Bolzano, they answered right back a couple of days later, winning 7-2, tie the series up at 1. You thought, okay, things are going back to normal. But in those last 3 games that, yes, Bolzano won them all, every single one was a 1-goal game. 2-1, 4-3, 3-2. So Bratislava, fair play to Bratislava. They gave them no end of a fight about that one. And, I think even, again, as I said, the 4-1, don't think it tells the whole story. And I think Bratislava can really hold their heads up high in that series.
Absolutely. My geography is not very good, Chris, so help me out with this. How many, so depending on how the Salzburg-Dornbirn series goes, how many more Austrian teams are actually left in the playoffs for the second round?
You've got...
Because Bolzano's Italian.
Bolzano is Italian, Bratislava is Slovakian, so those are 2 of the 3, and the other one is Ferrovar, so it's everybody apart from Bolzano.
Okay, fair enough.
So it's whoever loses to Bolzano in the finals gets the Austrian trophy, or whoever wins the finals, if it's not Bolzano, does the double.
The double, the double. Okay, so that's the ice hockey league. I don't want to say the Austrian hockey league because there are some non-Austrian teams there, but it's the predominantly. How about we call it the predominantly Austrian league? I love that.
A bit long.
Yeah, it's a bit long. Yeah, the PAHL, the predominantly Austrian hockey league. I've got your new name there, folks. Oh, banners on the wall will love that new name, won't they? Let's move on to the Polish league, because wow, we have had a very interesting story in the Polish league.
I love the Polish league. Polish league's my favourite league I think we cover at the moment.
Yeah, so we have found out the final matchups in the Polish league. So I'll take you through from the first round again. So the first seed, so it's the first seed, the second seed, the fourth seed, and the sixth seed managed to go through, because Krakow managed to beat third seed Torun 4-2. Then the semi-finals, which recently ended, Jastrzębie, the second seed, takes a 4-1 series victory over Katowice, the fourth seed. Okay, that makes sense. Now, we had Tichy. What was it at last week, Chris? I believe it was at 2-2, wasn't it? It was something like that?
No, Tichy... hang on, let me just check. It might have been at 2-2.
It was either 2-1 or 2-2. Yeah,
2-2. No, it was 2-2.
So the series was tied between the first-ranked Tichy, who, for want of a better term, Jastrzębie were close, but Tichy essentially dominated the regular season. They had a fantastic year. We very much expected them to be in the finals. But then Mr. Sixth Seed, Krakow, decides, you know what? I don't want to be eliminated in the semi-finals. I want to be a sixth seed that goes through to the Polish Hockey League finals. They take a 4-2 series victory, 6-game series victory over Tichy, the first seed. And the final matchup is second seed Jastrzębie against sixth seed Krakow. And that means the third place matchup is first seed Tichy against fourth seed Katowice. So a huge upset in that second round of the playoffs, with Krakow taking the 6-game victory. So what an exciting story is Krakow this year, Chris.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's just it's going to be a really good series, because there's not only, part of me almost fancies Krakow in this because they've done so well to get to where they are. There's so much for them to play for. They're going on a high. Obviously, there's a Champions Hockey League spot, going for it. We've had more Champions Hockey League qualifiers. That's the word I was looking for. This week as well, which we'll touch on once we've gone through all of the leagues. Don't let me forget about that.
Yes, it's something I thought of as well.
Yeah, so it's just so... I fancy Krakow in this, and I was really surprised, and it's what we spoke about. I messaged you earlier on in the day. They held Tichy to 1 goal in 2 games. They won that 2-game series. That 2-game series, they won 7-1 on aggregate.
Wow.
You go even further back than that. They held them to 1 goal the game before. So they held them to 2 goals in 3 games.
Wow.
Which was just really good for Krakow. And as I said on there, 1 goal in 2 games. And I was having a look at the netminding stats for Krakow, and it was slightly strange because they didn't really have what seemed an obvious starting netminder. What they did have was Robert Kawaloka, who seemed to play in the regular season, but then from what I gather, they drafted somebody in.
Okay.
And then he became the regular.
Right.
The 2 games, so those final 2 games, the shutout and the 4-1, were the only 2 playoff games that Kawaloka has played this season.
Oh, wow.
And he shuts out the league leaders 1 time and only concedes 1 the rest of the time. I don't get full stats outside of the KHL on Flash Score, so I can't tell you exactly what his save percentages were, but yeah, to hold the league leaders in your only playoff games you've played so far this season to 1 goal in 120 minutes of hockey is quite a remarkable achievement. And as I said, I think Krakow now are going to go into this full of confidence and will give Jastrzębie a very, very good run for their money. The 3rd place game, I mean, that's kind of a bit of a what's the real point?
It's kind of the 3rd place game in the Elite League playoffs, isn't it? It's just kind of like a fun game where nobody really cares.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how that one goes. That one is a best of 5.
Okay.
The third place. So Tichy or Katowice, I don't really know on that one. My gut instinct says Tichy, but I'll be honest, I'm not really focused on that. I just want Krakow now. As I said earlier, I love the underdog, and I want Krakow more than anything to win the league and get that Champions Hockey League spot.
Absolutely. Now, to be fair, to kind of put things into perspective, Krakow has been a top team in the Polish league in years past. They have played in the Champions Hockey League at least once or twice in their history. So the fact that they're playing in a final isn't kind of outside the realm possibility. It's not something that should shock anybody, whether it be Polish league fans or Krakow fans specifically. But the fact that, they were the 6th seed and they've managed to go on this run, that's the really impressive thing. And if they manage to make it through and get that Champions Hockey League place, I don't think anybody would be surprised. They're going to ride that momentum all the way to the end of the series, I think. That was a look at the Polish league. That's obviously the league that's furthest through its playoffs and will be the first to be finished, I would imagine, in the next 2 weeks or so. Then,
I mean, if it's a sweep, for example, it's done next week.
Well, yeah, there you go. And then the Polish league
it'll be done by the end of next week, regardless. Yeah, and then if it's a sweep, then we'll be done. Yeah, it could be done by the time we record next week, but by any stretch, it's going to be done by our first April one. So
yes, exactly. So there you go. Isn't that cool? So we have one last league to talk about the playoffs as it stands right now, and that is the Danish Metaligaen. Now, we've almost found out the results of the first round. Obviously, we had a little chat about them last week, and there were a few games that have been played, but nothing had been decided as of yet. And once again, we're seeing a prime example of the top seed teams leading or beating the lower seed teams. We've got the Rungsted Sea Capitals, 4-0 sweep of the Rodovra Mighty Bulls. So first seed, 8th seed's gone. Sonders Yike, interestingly, they've also secured themselves a Champions Hockey League place because they won the Continental Cup last year, and that's been decided also. So they've managed to get themselves into the Champions Hockey League again. even though they're about to start the second round of the playoffs. So they swept Herning Blue Fox. Interesting that the 4th seed swept the 5th seed. You would have thought it would have been a little bit more competitive than that, but it wasn't. The Aalborg Pirates, the 2nd seed, swept once again the Herlev Eagles, the 7th seed. So 1st, 4th, and 2nd have all gone through. The only series in the first round that actually had somewhat of a competitive drive to it in terms of the final scores, Esbjerg Energy versus Frederikshavn, the 3rd seed and the 6th seed. Esbjerg Energy 3-2 up in that series. One more win, they go through, then it's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. But Frederikshavn, they're still in it. They still have a chance. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, game 6 in that series tonight. But yeah, I think fair play to Frederikshavn. I mean, they went 2-0 down in the series and they really did pull it back by winning the next 2 games. They won game 3 in overtime and game 4 in overtime as well. So they have needed overtime on both occasions. But yeah, fair play to them to pulling that back to 2-2. They've gone 3-2 down now, but they will feel as though they could get the win that they need to take it to a game 7. As you said, the other series are all sweeps. Slightly surprising about Sondersjijk against Herning Blue Fox. As you said, you'd have thought that one might have been slightly closer, considering that there was only 1.5 points separating them over the course of the regular season. But I think what this shows, and we see it often in these leagues where there's not that many teams in it, and particularly when you haven't got like the promotion relegation like some leagues don't, is that you will often find this, that there is such a gap between the teams at the top and the teams at the bottom. And that gap is the same every single year because the teams, like even here in the Elite League, you have the arena teams where you've got your Panthers, your Sheffields, your Belfast, who will have proper arenas and get in, 6,000-7,000 people. And then you've got your teams like Dundee, who, no disrespect to Dundee, can hold like 2,000, 2,500 people, and their ice rink also has curling markers on it.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. And you've got the same thing here where you've got, your teams like Rungsted and your top 2 teams, your Rungsted, your Aalborgs, where they are just so dominant over the rest of the leagues. We saw that. The rest of the teams in the league, we saw that in the case of the regular season. Rungsted 100 points, Aalborg 97, Esbjerg 94, and then you've got a 19-point gap down to anybody else.
Yeah,
you have those 3 teams who just had such the more dominant season than anybody else. And when you've got a league like that, particularly again, you've got 9 teams in the league. There isn't relegation. 8 out of the 9 teams make the playoffs. So even the teams who have had a shocker of a season get in as that 8th seed, and no wonder they get swept.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show you that, once again, you expect the top seeded teams, the ones that have dominated throughout the regular season, to go on this type of run. Like you mentioned, if only one team misses out on the playoffs, you expect the top seeded team that, was 50 points higher than them in the regular season to absolutely dominate them in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they don't, then it's kind of, that's the shock, that's the surprise. Whereas once again, we're seeing an example of it's a routine situation throughout Europe. The top seeds are going through. That's what you expect with the playoffs because that's how they do it. Well, what were you going to say, Chris?
Yeah, I was going to say Rungsted like more than doubled Redover's points in the regular season. But like I said, when you've got a league like this, like I'll take it to an extreme, but you could lose every single game in the season, pick up a overtime loss, get 1 point, as long as the team below you, like a Gdansk or something from the Polish league, lose every single game, you could lose completely the entire season and somehow get in the playoffs and come up against a team that's just going to dominate you for 4 games.
Oh, what an exciting story that would be is if they get an overtime loss and that's the only point they get, but then they go on to win the playoffs. I want to see that. I want to see that happen. You could probably...
I'm not sure that'll happen anywhere.
But... Oh, no, never. But you could literally like simulate the Danish Metal League 1,000 times, and I bet that there's like a 0.0001% chance that happens. And I want to see it. I want to see it happen. But anyway, so that's all of the playoffs throughout Europe. So obviously we spent the majority of the episode talking about that because that's the most important stuff. Let's move on to the regular season. Several of them starting to wrap up. Several of them about halfway through. Let's start with the Swedish Hockey League. Now we have 3 different teams that have secured themselves a first round bye. We have an announcement that Rögle BK has secured themselves a place in the Champions Hockey League for next season, which is congratulations to them. It's also their first appearance, according to the Champions Hockey League Twitter. So that's really good. The fact that, and we're going to get some fresh meat in the system in in Rögle. Obviously, Frölunda have secured themselves a spot there as the recent champions, even though they're only 6th in the standings. But I'll take you through the standings as they sit right now, and then Chris will give you his thoughts. So, the top 3 teams, all of them that secured a first round bye: Rögle BK, 95 points in 50 games, the Växjö Lakers, 93 points in 47 games, and Skellefteå, 89 points in 50 games. So, is it a 50 game or a 52 game season, Chris? I believe it's a 52.
52 game season. It runs until March 31st. So we'll be done by next week.
So I'm going to be very interested to see if the Växjö Lakers finish the season as the top seed in the entire league, because they're only 2 points back from Rögle with 3 games in hand, and they've won 4 of their last 5 games, 4 straight. So, it's Växjö's to kind of lose at this point. Then the rest of the teams that are sitting in a first round bye position as it stands right now, you've got Leksands, Åbro, and Frölunda. However, very close to them is Luleå, although they have gone on a bit of a losing streak recently. 79 points in 49 games. They have 1 game in hand on Frölunda and Åbro. They're only 2 points back from a first round bye, so get a win in that game in hand, and they're back up in 6th. So a bit of a fall from grace for Frölunda over the last little while, but that said, Luleå hasn't exactly done much better recently either. Then bit of a drop. You've got Färjestad with 70 points in 47 games. Djurgården, 65 points, a drop even there, 50 games. And Malmö have started to jump up a little bit, 64 points in 46 games. Points in each of their last 5 games with only 1 loss. Then that's all the teams that are currently sitting in playoff berths. And I would imagine as things look right now, that's probably how it's going to end up. Just depends on where in the rankings we've done. We talked all about that last week in terms of how far Malmö could reach up and all of the different situations we have there. The 2 teams in no man's land, Linköpings and Oskarshamn. That said, Brynäs IF, they're very close to securing themselves the 12th seed. Same amount of points, 57 points, but 1 game in hand. So I feel like it's going to come down to the wire to see who's in those final 2 positions. But the team that's pretty much secured themselves the bottom seed in the Swedish Hockey League this year, HV71, 48 points in 48 games. They have 1 point in their last 5. They've won 11 games and lost 27 in regulation. They are, as it stands right now, essentially 16, 27 and 5, which isn't the best record. They're a team that you usually see higher up the standings, but for some reason, whatever's happened to them this year just hasn't quite worked out for them, has it, Chris?
No, they can only get 12 points for the rest of the season, so they could get 60, but when you've got to consider they've got 4 games, they're 9 points behind third. Well, they're 9 points behind safety, and they've only got 12 to play for. They've got to win every single game on the way in, and it's probably unlikely. I'll just have a look. In fact, it's at the moment they've just started the second period and they're losing. So if they lose today, then that is it for them. They're going to be in that play around. They've got Oskarshamn, Luleå, and Linköping. So some games that they probably could win. Okay, Luleå is potentially more difficult, but Oskarshamn and Linköpings, they're around that area, so they need to be winning these, but they're losing to Leksands at the moment. Yes, as you said, Rögle have made it into the Champions Hockey League. Now, for clarification to anybody, and I'll say it purely because I just had a bit of a brain freeze moment as well. I was like, the problem is that because obviously all the leagues we've covered so far, the league winners get the Champions Hockey League spot. I was like, how have they already secured it when they're 2 points clear when Vasco have got so many games in hand? But of course, Sweden, being one of the founding members of the Champions Hockey League, get more than 1 spot. And they've secured themselves at least the top 3 spots, which is how they've got in as well. So I don't imagine it will be too long. In fact, Vasco only need like 1 point from their remaining 5 games to get their spot in there as well. So we expect to add Vasco to that list of qualified teams shortly. But yes, the SHL season runs to March the 31st, which is a week tomorrow. And as you said, the 3 teams have got themselves that first round bye. What I find interesting is teams like Malmo, because they haven't been able to, so far anyway, make the games up. They have got, in fact, it's going a little bit longer. So it's going to the 2nd of April looking at this, because they've got to play the 24th, the 26th, the 28th, the 29th, the 31st, and the 2nd. They've got an awful lot of games. They've got 5 games in the next 8 days.
Oh, geez.
So they're going to really struggle getting those games in. I think they're going to be knackered by the end of it. But they're in a good position where they've got the ability to climb higher up the league. As we've already established, they're not going to get into the first round bye section, that they could get themselves a home draw in that round of what they're going to call 16, but I'll call it kind of the wild card round.
First round, yeah.
Yeah, first round. So interesting to see what they do there.
Yeah, I feel like Malmo's going to be a really interesting one because, like I mentioned earlier, points in 5 straight games. They lost their most recent game, but they still managed to pick up a point. I feel like they're in danger, like you mentioned, with 5 games in 8 days. It looks like they could finish off the season on a bit of a winning streak, and if they keep playing the way they're playing, they're going to pick up at least 3 wins at least. Like if we're going roughly based on their recent form or what you would expect. But the last thing you want is for them to run out of gas at the end of the regular season and then end up getting swept in the first round because they had such a difficult schedule to end the season. So hopefully they manage to find a way to get a decent balance going, you know?
I kind of fancy being Desjardins at the moment.
Mm.
And the reason I say that is because I think it's likely that Malmo will pick up enough points to jump them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which means that Desjardins would be in 10th and they would play Lelea.
Yes.
The reason I fancy being Desjardins is that Lelea are on an 8-game losing streak at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're really not in a good run of form. But what's also surprising with Lelea, who they're on that 8-game losing streak, and yet they're only 2 points away from getting that first round bye. Like if they hadn't gone on that losing streak, they'd be up in like 3rd place at the moment. They're just not having a good time of it at all. And they could easily find themselves, if they don't turn that around at the start of the playoffs and the last few games of the regular season, they're going to find themselves in trouble.
Well, think about it. That's 24 points that they've lost on the season with an 8-game losing streak, almost, because they might have lost a few games in overtime shootouts. But for want of a better term,
24 points puts them on 104.
Exactly. Like even if they'd gone about 500, they'd be sitting very comfortably in a first round bye position. So it just goes to show you that those little streaks that happen as the season goes on, whether it's right at the beginning of the year, where it's a team like HV71 that didn't get off to the best of starts and it's kind of made it worse for them for the rest of the year, or, like whether they start off strong, but then they can't hold it for the rest of the regular season. It just goes to show you, like Lexans, for example, they're sitting in 4th place. They've gone on a bit of a winning streak here. They could potentially finish the season as the 3rd seed because they're finishing the season strong, winning enough games. So it's going to be very exciting to see how the Swedish Hockey League ends. But sorry, Chris, you were going to say something.
I was going to say Lexans are on a 5-game winning streak.
Wow.
They have won 10 out of the last 11.
Oh, wow.
And they're winning tonight.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're talking, 6-game winning streak, 11 of their last 12. They're going to be 1 point back from 3rd place. So they'll probably have
back from Skellefteå, yeah.
Yeah, so they probably would have secured themselves a first-round bye position, I would imagine. Or very close to, considering they'd only need 1 more point, because Skellefteå's got it on 89. So you'd imagine it's close enough.
Yes, they would be... Yeah, they'd need 1 more point because Lelea could win their 3 games and tie them on 88. And then if they won them all in regulation, which they'd have to do, they'd have 24 regulation wins to Leksands 23. So yeah, Leksands, if they carry on winning tonight and they're beating HV71 at the moment, they would need 1 more point from the last 2 games to guarantee it.
Which,
or just let Lelea not win in regulation again.
Exactly. Or, it's just a case of Leksands, just keep playing their game. For the last 2 games of the season, they're going in on a hot streak, so go for it, guys.
You just hope that not playing in that first round isn't going to disrupt the streak.
That's a good point. That could have a real impact on how they play. That's a good point, Chris. We need to keep an eye on that once the playoffs actually get underway and see if that has any kind of impact on them.
Will do.
So let's move on to the Finnish Liga. They've still got a little bit more to go.
Yep.
No playoff berths decided as it stands right now.
It's a 60 game season. So they've still got kind of 9 games to go. So they've still got 27 points available. So nothing's been decided yet. I'll just run through the movements. So Karpat, they're up 2 places to 4th. Tappara are down 1. Pelicans are down 2. Ilves are up 1. Asset and Hamelina have swapped. And Jukurit and Saipa have swapped.
Okay. Interesting. So it's very clear who the front runner is in the Finnish Liga at the moment. 105 points in 51 games for Lukko. But that said, IFK Helsinki 90 points with 5 games in hand on Lukko. So I mean, we're talking 15 points.
They'd have to win them all.
But it's but that's also in the 5 games in hand, and then they've got another 9 games to play after that. So, they're on a 5-game winning streak, so we could see Helsinki take it.
It's worth saying as well that the 5-game, if they were to win those 5 games in hand, yes, they'd tie them on points. They'd still be 3 regulation wins behind them. So
yes.
Apart from the fact that obviously doesn't matter because it's the percentage, it's the points percentage, because we've already established, and I think we mentioned it last week, the Liga have already said they're not going to get to all 60 games because they need to start their playoffs. So they're doing it on points percentage, which is why if you look at the standings,
I just realised that. Yeah, TPS Turkey.
Ilves in 6th on 85 points are behind Karpat and Tappara are on 84, and Turku on 95 are behind Helsinki. It's done on points percentage.
Yes.
So Helsinki, yes, they've only played 46 games, but of the 60-game season, they've only got 7 games left. So they're only going to get to 53.
Yeah, true. So, but it's really important to mention. I was sat there while you were talking, and while you were about to get to it, I was like, TPS Turku have 95 points, and they're in 3rd place. Why is that? Then I looked down on Flash Scores. Final order of the teams is decided by the percentage gain of points. So, that makes perfect sense. So, Helsinki, they're still very much in the race, all things considered, and the way that they've been playing wouldn't surprise me. That said, TPS Turku are also playing very well for themselves. They're obviously 10 points back from Luko with the same amount of games played, but they've gone on a bit of a run recently as well. Karpat, Tappara, and Ilves in the final first-round bye positions as things stand right now. Like Chris mentioned, despite the fact that Ilves has 1 more point than Karpat and Tappara respectively, but the fact they've played less games, more percentage gain of points. Then the first-round positions, we have the Pelicans, Kalpa, Kuku, and Vassen Sport. There's a pretty big drop between 8th and 9th here, 10 points. Although that said, Kalpa, they've picked up a couple of points in their last 5 games, but they really have not played very well. Then the teams outside of the playoffs, Hämeenlinna with 8 points out of the playoffs. It's looking unlikely that they'll jump in there, but there's still a chance. You've got Asat with 60 points, Ukrit with 50 points, Saipa with 46 points, and JYP Jyväskylä 47 points. Obviously, points percentage gain. They've played more games, have 1 more point, but that's why they're sat in last place as opposed to Saipa. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on the Finnish Liga as it starts to get towards the end of its season?
Yeah, as I said, because they're finishing on April the 13th, and obviously they're using this points percentage. I like the fact that obviously everybody knew they were doing points percentage way in advance rather than the French League. We'll come on to it. I'll confess I've not been on the Liga website to find out why. Mm-hmm. But I'm assuming, backdating, that they've worked out April the 13th is the date that they have to start the playoffs by in order for the playoffs to be done before the World Championships.
Yeah.
So that the players can go to the World Championships. That's my assumption. I don't know it for sure, and I'm sure I could probably find it, but it's probably like 2 months down the news archives by now. But I would guess that's the reason why. So it's interesting because it makes it harder for us, because unless I go through and look at how many games each team has got left, we kind of don't really know what the final standings are going to be, because you're going to end up with a team like Helsinki who are only going to finish on 53 coming up against a team like TPS Turkey who have got 51. If we look at Luko, for example, they have still got, all 9 of their final games are scheduled. So we're going to end up with a final standings where Luko are, I would imagine, going to be top, but they'll have played their 60 games, and Helsinki will only have played 53, but they'll be in second. So it's kind of things where we can't really call this league too well until April the 13th, and it's all done.
Absolutely. Speaking of calling things, the Nottingham Panthers, Chris, just for you, have announced a new signing. They've signed forward Nick Deneen for the Elite Series. I'm not quite sure where he has been playing.
I'll be honest, I have to turn absolutely everything off on my internet for this. So.
I'll have a look. I'll have a look while we go along. Do you want to take the Swiss National League, Chris? Do you want to take us through the standings and all of the changes there? Because that's the next league we need to look at.
I can have a look.
And I'll have a look at Nick Deneen.
National League. Yep.
Go for it.
Okay, Nick Deneen. We'll come on to the Elite Series in a moment. So the Swiss National League, it is really tight in the Swiss National League. So 3 points, bear in mind that's 1 game, separates second, which is currently Zurich, and sixth, which is Lausanne. Zurich have climbed a couple of places. Biel have dropped by 2 places. Lugano and Lausanne have both climbed a place to go above Biel. Zug, of course, have already secured that first round bye, as we spoke about. It's a 52-game season in the National League, runs to April the 5th, so a couple of weeks left in that. So 3-4 games a week for some of these sides. But Zurg, as we said, really dominant, still going strong. They now only need one win, and they could get that in their game in hand to secure the first place in the league, have the league standings. Down towards the bottom, of course, we keep our eye on SC Bern, who have lost a couple of games, won one and lost two since we last spoke. But there hasn't been any movement at all from 8th down to 12th. The gaps might have closed slightly, but there hasn't been actually any place movements. 17 points now between Rapperswil in 9th and Davos in 8th, which is promising for Davos because Rapperswil only have 18 points left available. So Davos, if Bern go on a streak and win every game between now and the end of the season, they could climb above Davos, but Davos, the lowest they're going to be is 8th. They're kind of in a bit of no man's land as well, 8 points behind BL. Langno Tigers, they have 8 games to go, potentially 24 points, but realistically 18 points back. They need to win too many, really, at least 6 out of their final 8 games. They're probably going to be in the what would be a relegation group, but there is no relegation. Ambri Piotta, again, they're in that battle now at the moment. It's Rapperswil, Bern, Ambri Piotta. They're in that battle trying to get the 2 of those spots for the first round of the playoffs. Team to watch, as usual, really, is Lugano. They're on at least a 5-game winning streak. Just let me check that again. Yes, it is a 5-game winning streak at the moment for Lugano, who continue to climb up. And again, because it's so tight that they could find themselves, by the time we record next week, easily in second because they're only 1 point back.
Yeah, wow, it's a log jam, I think is the right way to put it.
Yeah.
That also don't count out Geneva Servette as well. They have a game in hand on several of the other teams around them. So,
yep.
There's, like you said, with the Finnish Liga, it's going to be very difficult to say who's going to be in which position in that first round bye because there's so many different teams that are in competition, and that's not even including BLBN that are only 1 point back. Yeah. And from the 6th seed. So, oh my God, the Swiss National League's going to get exciting towards the end of it, isn't it? Just to update you, Chris, Nick Deneen, he plays for Lillehammer in Norway, which is actually an interesting point to mention. He was the captain of their team last year. He spent the last 4 years there of his career. He spent 5 years total there. He also played the 13-14 season there. That will bring us on to a really important point regarding the Norwegian League later on. Let's move on to the German DEL. We only have a few more leagues left to go through. So, Chris, Do you want to take us through the German DEL as well and kind of the latest scores? Because I believe now we're in the second half of the regular season,
We're in the second phase. We are, yes. So the first phase, if you remember, was all the interconference stuff just in case they had to cancel the season. They're now playing the other half, so it's North versus South. Everyone's played one game of North versus South. Let's have a look at the standings. So in the North, Wolfsburg and the Roosters, they've swapped after the first round. I think actually they probably swapped looking at this on the last game because they both lost their first game against the team in the other conference. So they probably swapped in that last game because if you remember, they had that one game to play as we recorded last week. In the southern section, no changes at all. But Nuremberg Ice Tigers, they got themselves another victory, beating the Roosters by 7 goals to 3.
Hey.
Berlin, continued to really go for it. They are 17-4-4 now this season. They beat the Augsburg Panthers by 5 goals to 3 as well. So, yeah, a really strong showing there. Interesting, in the first round of the inter-conference matchups, no overtimes at all. And it was kind of the South had the better of the North in most cases there. If you have a look at it, you've got 5 wins in the South compared to only 2 wins in the North. So perhaps there is argument there that the South might be slightly stronger of the 2 divisions. We'll see how that goes and see how they compare over the course of the rest of the season, which runs until April the 18th. So about 3 weeks left in that.
Only 5 days after the Finnish Liga season is supposed to finish up. So still going to have plenty of stuff to talk about for the next few weeks.
A similar thing, I suspect, in the sense that all these leagues now are going, well, we've got to get the playoffs done so players can go to the World Championships.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So, the DL looks interesting. Obviously, the South, the argument that the South might be stronger than the North. Adler Mannheim is certainly making a good case for that. 4 wins in their last 5 games, points in their last 5, 61 points, leading the league by a notable margin. That said, the Berlin Ice Bears, 5 straight wins. They're not going down without a fight, and that's what you like to see. And then the Krefeld Penguin are just still kind of down there chilling, like somebody has to sit at the bottom. It turns out this year it's Krefeld's turn. So we only have one more league to actually look at the standings, but we've got 2 more leagues to talk about. Let's move on to the French League Magnus. So, like we mentioned last week, they're doing it via points percentage. And if you want to understand what happened with the French League Mags, I really don't want to have to go into it all over again, because we've talked about it
They're only
literally
doing it
every
by
week.
points percentage for some of the teams, and
Yes.
it's all a bit weird. So I'll run through it quickly. So Gap are up 2 places, and Grenoble and Sergi-Pontoise both dropped down a spot. Anglais and Chamonix Mont Blanc in that 10th and 11th spot, they have swapped. Now, you've got the league website up, haven't you?
Yes, I do indeed.
Rather than flash scores. Yeah, so the new league points, they have been put on there. So, Angers in second place have finished their season. They're done.
Right.
Because they weren't in any of these extra games or anything. So what the French league have done, I went through the maths, if you remember.
You did.
Last time out, and worked out that Nice were dropping like 3.77 recurring points or whatever it was.
Yep.
The French league has decided that they are rounding down any decimal places.
Okay. So give us an example there,
the
Chris.
French league are so Nice dropped down to, I think it's 25 points.
Okay.
And so they're dropping the decimal points down in terms of looking at a league table. The decimal point still comes into play if there's a tiebreaker. So if Nice tie with somebody on, say, 28 points, for example, at the end of the season, Nice will go ahead of them because Nice are actually on 28.3.
Right. So yeah,
it's kind of, they're making it look nice for the league table, and they'll only apply the decimal point if they have to, basically.
Yeah, which, I don't really blame the French league for doing. Like, if they're going to have this whole difficult system because the situation that they're in, the fact that they're going, okay, well, we're not actually going to count the decimal point unless it's absolutely necessary, good on them. So
yeah, it makes sense. So the other thing is that because of that, and because they've cancelled all the other cup competitions, Rouen have, and because obviously Angers have now finished their league, Rouen have qualified for the Champions Hockey League next year.
So we have another team making the Champions Hockey League.
Yeah, so how many teams we've got in the Champions Hockey League now? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 in total already qualified for next season.
That means we only have just over half of them left to decide, because aren't they limiting the amount of teams this next season? It's 24, aren't they? Or
24. Like, I can't remember off the top of my head if they're doing that this season or if they've delayed it. I can't remember.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I guess it would make sense given the fact that they've had all the pause and everything, that if they wanted to institute it, now would be the time to do it, when there's been such a break.
Yes.
But then again, we don't run the Champions Hockey League, so, they might have something else up their sleeves. So that's all of the leagues that have actually played games recently. Now, I mentioned earlier a new player joining the Elite League's Nottingham Panthers from the Norwegian Fjordkraft Ligaen. And that's because we got the announcement today that the Norwegian League, or Chris found the announcement and told me today, that the Norwegian League has cancelled the rest of its season. It's done. It's over. So something we expected to happen for quite a while, considering they haven't actually played since the 2nd day of January. It's been almost 3 months since they last played. Yeah, I'm not surprised in the slightest. And as you would expect, there's going to be a lot of players from this league that end up in the Elite League series in the next couple of weeks, because I know a player from the Sheffield Steelers has come over from Sparta Sarpsborg, for example.
Yes.
So yeah, we're going to see a lot of these players move over. It sucks that the Norwegian League got about halfway into their season but couldn't quite finish it. But given the situation, this is essentially what could have happened to the Elite League if they decided to put a season on. So it's kind of, it sucks, but at the end of the day, if it's the right decision to make for everyone involved, you got to go ahead and make it, no matter if it's a difficult decision. So Chris, you said that there's still some talks regarding what's going to happen in terms of the regular season champion and everything like that. Do you want to just go into detail about that?
Yeah, so the Norwegian League, they were supposed to have a meeting yesterday, where they were going to decide what's happening in terms of the champions and promotion, relegation, that sort of thing. From what I gathered from bad Norwegian to English Google Translate, the document from the teams and the shareholders and all the rest of it was delayed, so they're now having the meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
The interesting point about that, and I have just gone back to have a look at this, the Champions Hockey League has decided, and whether they know something I didn't find, they have decided that Frisk Asker are going to be in the Champions Hockey League because they apparently they were confirmed on Thursday, which was when I think that document first came out, because it was a few days old when I found it.
Right.
Now, they didn't win the league last season.
Okay.
So the only thing I found is that they would top the league on points per game.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Well,
So
looking at it,
that's
because
why-
Storhammer has 53 points in 24 games. They currently sit in the top of the league, but Frisk Asker, 1 point behind, 52 points, but in 23 games. So yeah, I would imagine it's points percentage, similar to the league.
Yeah, so the points percentage, Frisk Asker on 2.26 points per game, Storhammer on 2.21 points per game. So I imagine that's why, as I said, I haven't looked through. I only found it on my lunch break today, and then, of course, been working and everything this afternoon. So I suspect that is why. But yes, the Frisk Asker have got into the Norwegian League, which I mean, I believe. So we already had the two teams from Austria, the two teams from the Czech Republic. As you said, Sondersjijk from Denmark, who won the Continental Cup 2 seasons ago, because it didn't happen this season. They're in it. Rouen is the French League champions. Frisk Asker has the best points percentage. The two teams from Sweden that we've already discussed, and then the one from the United Kingdom. But I know we'll get on to the Elite Series, now stroke after the quiz, whichever you want.
Well, yeah, we'll get into it now, because we may as well, because then we can finish off with the quiz and have a bit of a chill time. But yeah, the Cardiff Devils. The Cardiff Devils are the team that made it to the Champions Hockey League. Obviously, they're not taking part in the Elite Series over the next couple of weeks, which is, it's a shame that all of the teams aren't taking part. But, you know, the fact that we're actually getting some hockey here in the UK, we can't really complain, can we? But speaking of the Elite League, like Chris and I mentioned at the beginning, there has been an announcement regarding the prices and the webcasts and all of the information regarding that. So I have the website up here, and it stands like this.
Yep.
So there's 24 games taking place in the regular season, I might add. 24 games. Remember, it's between the Coventry Blaze, the Nottingham Panthers, the Sheffield Steelers, and the Manchester Storm. So 4 teams, 24 regular season games, then there's the playoffs afterwards. So a 24-game pass costs the average UK hockey fan £149 for all 24 games. Averages out, roughly, according to them, £6.20 per game. A half-season pass, a 12-game pass, essentially, £99 is £8.25 per game. A 6-game home team pass, so all of the quote-unquote home games that a certain team plays this season, which is interesting. I would imagine it's only half the home game. Oh, no, it can't be half the home game.
So
I'm confused.
You've got 24, right? So you've got 24 games.
Yes.
Which is every single game.
Yes.
Your team is involved in. So say for us,
you're
Panthers, your team is involved in 12 of those.
Yeah, good point.
So for you to watch all 12 of your team's games is that 12-game pass.
Yeah, good point. And
now,
then the
because
6th
you're
home
playing
game.
Everybody home and away, even though it's all in Nottingham.
Just different jerseys.
If you want to watch just the 6 home games, then it's another. Yeah, that's your 6-game pass. Now, to me, because especially since they're all in Nottingham, I'm not sure many people are going to just pick the 6 home games.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only ones that will... So, Chris and I have had a big discussion about this, like, away from the podcast and, you know, just, like, talking because the news came out recently. I'll also add the single game pass, £13. That's the last cost there. Yeah. So, £149, £99, £69 or £13. So, the only people that are likely to go for a 6-game home team pass are people that, you know, yeah, it's all in Nottingham, but they're the sort of people that don't want to pay the extra money for more games if they either know or aren't sure if they're going to want to or have the time to watch the rest of the games that their teams play. So, you know, £69 is... It looks a lot more enticing for somebody that's kind of on the fence than £99, right? And the fact that they might be like, oh, I'm only available for X amount of time. I want to support the team. I want to support UK hockey, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to sit down for all of the games. They get to pick the 6 home games where, it's like they get to see the Steelers in their orange, the Panthers in their black and gold, so I feel like it makes sense to have the 4 different packages. I'm glad that they've added a bit of variety into it. But Chris, you wrote a tweet about this when you saw the news that all of this had gone live.
Yes.
Would you want to kind of echo the thoughts that you had there, and maybe any other thoughts that you had that you couldn't put in the tweet, or thoughts that you've had since? Kind of your overall views on this whole package.
My overall views are the £13 for a single game is too much.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree.
For one game, too much.
Yep.
When you consider that you can, in normal times, you can buy a normal ticket and actually go and watch it live for like 15, 16.
Yeah. You can get a prime seat, like right in the center of the arena, like behind the benches for 20 quid.
Yeah. So the 13 to me was too much. As I alluded to earlier, and again, this is something I didn't have enough characters for in the tweet. I can't see many people just going for the 6 home games.
Yeah.
Particularly when they're all in Nottingham and nobody can go anyway.
Yep.
Like you're kind of only picking half your team's games. Obviously, you don't get to pick which ones it are, and it doesn't feel like a home game because it's all the same ice. So I don't think many people are going to go with that. They're just watching your 12, the 12 games from your team. I suppose it does appeal.
Yes.
And I can see why some people, if they really die hard, that team's like, I will only watch this team.
Which to be fair, most fans are, right? Like, let's be honest. Like, your thoughts on the kind of 6-game home team pass are the exact same thoughts I have on the 24-game pass. Because we talked about this before we started. The likelihood of anybody buying that pass and being able to sit down and watch every single game from start to finish in the period of time that they're being shown, which is like 2 or 3 weeks, right? 4 weeks.
So
tops.
it's over a 5-week period.
5 weeks.
Bear in mind, I believe,
but that's including the playoffs, right?
The last week of that includes the playoffs, I believe.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So 4 weeks.
24 games. You're talking 24 games in 4 weeks. So that's 6 games a week. So you've got to sit down and find 2.5 hours, which is the rough. Yeah. Including obviously the intermissions, the rough start to finish of a hockey game. 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours every single day, pretty much, on average, for 4 weeks. And I know that the games are available for, I think it's like a month after they've gone.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I cannot watch a game live in full again when I already know the result and what happens. And I think that's echoed a lot by people around the league. And the reason I say that is all you have to do is look at the people who watch these reruns that like the Panthers and stuff are putting on YouTube. Like whenever it pops up on my YouTube, there's like 40, 50 people watching.
Yeah.
And if you compare that, and again, it's Nottingham based, but if you compare that to the Lions game I commentated on Saturday afternoon, 3rd tier British hockey live and free. Bearing in mind, obviously, the rerun of that Panthers game was free as well.
Yeah.
We had 750 people at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
You're talking 15 times people watching it free. And I don't see people who are going to sit, unless there was, as you said, a brilliant, play or something. But I think if there's something that brilliant, it's going to end up in a highlights package.
Exactly.
So
that's the point.
Who's going to sit and watch 2.5 hours every day for 4 weeks? Because if you miss one, and I know this from my point of view, if I miss a game, I'm not going to go and watch it back again.
No, but
I'm just not going to do it.
But at the same time, you're also going to think, damn it, like I spent 150 quid on this to watch all of these games. Like, I really feel like I should, watch each of them and get my money's worth, because, it's £6.20 a game. So you might be like, I lost £6.20, but like, at the same time, it's kind of like, that's something I paid specifically to get access to every single game. And if I miss one of these games, then, I feel like an idiot. I feel like the two of them, in my opinion, there's more appeal to the 6-game pass than there is the 24-game pass for the average the average die-hard UK hockey fan, if that makes sense.
I think
they're not like fair weather fans, they're not like completely average, but like the typical fan of the Elite League, of one of these teams that wants to watch the sport, that is more than happy to give money to the sport to help keep it around because they enjoy the sport, they enjoy their team, etc., etc. I feel like more of them will probably be willing to get 6 games for £70 than they would all of the 24 games for 150.
I think most people who are going to watch this series will either be a fan of the side and they'll buy the 12 games to watch all of their team.
Yep.
Or they'll be a neutral and they'll watch the odd 1 or 2 games for the £13. And it was a thing that I looked at a lot. And I saw a lot of tweets and comments coming in from the neutrals in the league that said, no, we've been priced out of that. I'm not, it's not my team. I thought about watching it, but not at that price.
Which
is completely fair enough.
Absolutely, especially given that their team's not in it. Like, for example, it's the same as going, like, when I watch the NHL, like, I primarily watch New York Rangers games, right? And the second the Rangers don't make the playoffs or don't do XYZ, I'm still, like, keeping up to date, but I don't sit down and watch a proper game unless it's, like, the Stanley Cup Finals or the occasional playoff game.
Even, like, players who, like, really want to see Ben Bounds back in this country.
Yeah.
They're only going to watch the odd 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, I think the 6 game to me is out. I know I've seen a couple of people that have said, they're watching it. And of course, it depends on the availability. Like, if they know that they're only around for the 6 home games, that's fair enough. Yeah. But to me, the 6 home games is out. The 24 games is out. I think the vast majority are going to go for the 12 games to watch just their team.
Yep.
And then you've got the neutrals that will pick and choose the odd single game pass. That's my view.
I think the fact that, and this is something we haven't touched on just yet, but the fact that they haven't included the playoffs in this price, I think is ridiculous. I think that the fact that
we spoke about this before, didn't we? And the fact that the playoffs are another, if you're going to watch all the playoffs, like if you've bought the 24 game pass, you're going to watch the up to 5 playoff games. It's going to be 4 or 5 playoff games.
Yeah.
Which is going to be another £40. Oh,
it's going to be more than that. It's going to be more than that, isn't it?
Well,
it's the playoffs.
It's if you... Yeah, I mean, the playoffs, it depends if they do a different pricing strategy for the playoffs.
They will. I 100% guarantee that they will. They're going to make it more expensive because it's the playoffs, right?
Okay, let's take the 13 game then. What are you saying? 15 quid then, are you saying, for the playoffs?
I wouldn't be surprised if they charge, like, if the single game pass was 20 quid for the playoffs, for the finals.
For the finals, yeah, I can understand that. So
and that's 3 games.
£200. You're talking £200
to watch every single game. Yeah,
to watch every single game. Now, again, it is a completely different market, but NHL TV, $99 for a half season pass.
Yeah, I bought the pass at the beginning of the season. I can just quickly double check how much it cost if you want.
But like the half season pass, so you get, as long as they're not being shown in your country. So
which blackout restrictions? Blackout restrictions. I will fight blackout. Like, there's the most useless thing in the world nowadays. Like, if they're not being shown on Premier Sports or Free Sports, you get access to every single NHL game on NHL TV if you're living in the UK.
To be honest, I suppose if you really wanted to, you could just use a VPN to make it look like you're in a different country.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, of course. I mean, I might be a sucker for not doing it, but then you're paying another charge for a VPN. You know,
is that £99 or $99?
It's dollars, I think. Let me just double check.
What I'm saying there is you've got half a season, which this season is 30 games per team.
Yeah.
For 31 teams. So you've got 50. So you've got 15 times 30. You've got access to 450 games for $99. Yeah. And here it's £150.
Yeah. So to clarify, it was $99 for the entire season and the playoffs. But obviously, the Stanley Cup Finals are shown on Premier Sports and all of this stuff.
I'm saying, I know it's a completely different market, and obviously they can charge a lower price because they've got so many more people doing it.
Of course.
But at the same time, the price there compared to the price in the Elite League, and to me, it just. And again, another point I'll make, and I feel like I'm flip flopping, so I'll try not to. But We don't know. We know that the Elite League received, or the four teams and the governing body and everything to put this mini series on received £2.3 million from Sport England.
Yeah.
And that was a mix of loans and grants.
Yep.
Now, we don't know how much was a loan, how much was a grant.
Of course.
So obviously the loan, they've got to pay it back. So what I'm assuming the league are hoping they're going to be able to do in this is get enough from these stream sales to just pay it back straight away and not have it over their heads for the next few years.
Which as a business you would expect. Like that's the smart thing to do, right?
Yeah. And there are people within the league who will know what the figures are, and they will have spoken to the clubs and gone, right, how many people do you normally get buying your streams? And they've worked it out, and they've used maths and worked out this pricing strategy.
Of course.
Yes, some people are fine with it. Some people aren't.
You're never going to please everyone.
No, you're never going to please everyone. They've gone with what they want. I'm very interested to see what the numbers are going to be.
Yes, me too.
Because if it turns out that they only get a couple of thousand or what have you, then they feel like they've not learned from. I saw one tweet that said they've not learned from the National League pricing strategy.
Yeah.
Because the National League were having some of their games at kind of £12 and £10, but yeah, we'll just see. I'll be very interested to see the numbers.
I think, like, if you ask me, like, I am considering buying a pass or a couple of single games for this. I want to watch UK hockey. Now, obviously, it all depends on when the games are, like, whether I have the time to do it. Like, the job that I do isn't necessarily like a 9-to-5 job. There's a lot of work, like, later on in the day, or, like, for example, there might be a game that goes on while we're recording this podcast, so I don't want to buy that game and then find out we're recording and then be like, oh, well,
Yeah,
Exactly. So I would, in my opinion, I'm probably more likely to either get the 12-game pass or the single-game pass, which I feel like what most people are doing. Like, I'm either going to get, like, a Nottingham Panthers 12-game pass, so I have £100, we can watch all the Panthers games, problem solved. I'm not going to go for the 24 game. I'm not going to lie, I really don't care about Coventry versus Manchester. That's just my personal opinion. I don't want to watch those games. I'm not interested. But then
the thing is that the reason you would buy games, like if you would buy a 12-game pass, because you want to see your team.
Yes.
Fair enough. And by buying the 12-game, the only reason to me that you would buy a 24-game pass is obviously you absolutely love hockey
and you've got
and have the ability, like if you're on furlough or something, you have bundles of time, or you want to watch like all the Brits as much as possible. But buying a 12-game pass, you get to see every player because you'll see them when they play your team.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're saving £50. So, let's put it this way. We can understand why certain people would want to buy certain packages. That at the end of the day, if you want to buy the 149 one, go for it. More power to you. Like, we're not saying like, oh my God, nobody should get the 24 game pack. If you're wanting to see all the Brits in action, if you're wanting, like, if you do scouting for a website or something and you want to write some articles based on the stuff going on.
Like, but that's different, isn't it?
Of course, no, absolutely. But like, if you're just a casual fan that has the time, has the means to be able to do it, go for it. Like Chris mentioned at the very beginning, I don't agree with £13 for a single game. A tenner, done. A tenner for a single game would make it so much more enticing. And I just know they're going to rack up the prices during the playoffs, or they're going to get some kind of deal with Premier Sports or something. And I would imagine they wouldn't, because it's a little bit too late in the game to do that. But say they have they're going to have a playoff package come out, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if it was between the 12 game and the 6 game price margin. I wouldn't be surprised to see if it was like £70 for 5 games.
Well, just for a bit of context, and I know this almost feels like we're turning into a bit of a rant, so I'll be quick with it. But a few years ago, it was when Panthers won the Continental Cup. Yeah. So we're talking
2017.
I was at university, so yes, 2017. I paid £10 for the Continental Cup final stream.
Right.
The European final, and I paid £10.
Yeah.
And now it's £13 for the just a round robin game.
Yeah.
In the Elite Series. Now, I know that obviously the Elite Series, they're really going for it. There's 8 cameras, interviews after each period, all the rest of it. And fair play, they're trying to put on the best show they can.
Which, yeah, fair play to them.
The production company, everything. 8 cameras means 8 cameramen. You've got all the technicians.
Yep,
you've got people who are having
great.
to do these interviews. There's a lot of people that are having to be paid for their time here.
Yeah, they're going to,
which is obviously why the price is high.
And they've been waiting for the opportunity. They're getting a job for a month, for 5 weeks. We're like, go and earn that bread. You know, like, absolutely. Like, that's what we want to see. We want to see people in this industry earning money. But the problem is, like you mentioned, the price that is priced out a lot of the casual fans. Like, those are the ones that you need the most. The hardcore fans are always going to find a way to pay for it. It's the ones that are neutral to the teams that are in there, but still want to support the clubs. And it's just kind of, for me to finish off, like, it's like you mentioned, like watching games back when you already know the score. I guarantee that no more than 5% of people that buy these are going to go back and rewatch the full game from a regular season game in the Elite Series. The playoffs, yeah, maybe. The playoff finals, wouldn't be surprised. But game 3 of the regular season, I don't think so. They're going to watch it live, or they're not going to watch it.
Like I said, my final sentence, I wonder if they would have been better off trying to do slightly lower production, say, for example, 4 cameras.
Yeah.
One on one side, one on the other side,
replays.
One behind each goal. I know Jono Bullard, who's a cameraman, says they're doing like, and he knows it much more. They've got one doing a wide shot, one's doing zoomed in at each side, one behind each goal.
Yeah.
I just wonder if they'd have been better off doing like 4 cameras rather than 8, and then bringing the running costs down to bring the prices down.
Yeah.
But as I said, they have put obviously a lot of thought into this, and they have come up with that decision. And I will probably buy the odd 1 or 2 games, but particularly with my internet, I'm not going to splash out on the 24 game pass if it then chooses that it doesn't want to play ball. So
the good thing is they do have like a test player that you can try out to make sure that it works, which is good. You know, it's helpful. Like the one thing I will say about this, I want to see Elite League TV moving forwards. I want to see this for all the 11 teams in the league have a season pass. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but like, come on, it's 2021 at this point. If we can't have a streamlined system for every team in the league, what's the point, guys? You know, like, come on, it's 2021. Let's get into the 21st century, please. It's been a while. But anyway, so that is the latest news on the Elite League. We've been going for about 90 minutes, Chris, so should we just blitz through the quiz and finish off?
Yeah,
that's the right way to do it. So
blitz through the quiz. So, as I said, it was one of the most contrived and contorted links to hockey I could possibly come up with this week.
Okay.
As you know, I like to link it to kind of national days and things like that.
Indeed.
All of this national days were around food.
Yes.
Apart from National 3D Day.
Okay.
So in a slightly contrived quiz, we've got questions about the number 3 and the letter D.
Okay, fair enough. Let's do it.
So, can you name the 3 teams in the KHL that begin with the letter D?
Dynamo Moscow. Dynamo Minsk. Dynamo Riga.
Yep, well done. There you go, 3 teams. I thought you'd get that one.
Well, they all have the same first name, so it's problem solved.
I know, I knew you'd get that one. Okay, in bingo, all the 3s are 33. How many teams at the moment have 33 regulation time season wins across Europe?
Oh my God, Chris, jeez.
And name them if you want to name them.
No.
Well, okay, use a little bit of logic and see which leagues have actually played 33 games. For example, it's not going to be a team in France, is it?
Well, no, absolutely. But like, so you're saying the teams that have got 33 regulation wins?
Yep.
So now I've got to sit there and think, okay, how much of this each season has been played? How many teams are likely to have won 33 games? There can't be that many that have won 33 games. I'm going to say 7.
No, there's 3 of them.
Oh, is there? I would imagine 2 are from the KHL,
33, right? And 3 teams, they're all from the KHL. SK St. Petersburg, Akbars Kazan, and Avangard Omsk.
See, I wasn't sure if like a team from the Polish league was able to like Tichy. I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd won a load of games. Okay, fair enough.
No, not quite. Okay, so there are 10 countries in Division 3 of the World Championships across like part 1 and part 2.
Right.
How many of those 10 countries have 3 colours on their flag?
I don't even know the teams in the... Oh, no.
Well, you've got a 10% chance of getting this right, haven't you? Because you've just got to pick a number between
Yeah, but
1
what
and
do we
10,
know about the percentage of my chances, Chris? They never work out. I'm going to go with... So you said there's 10 teams, right?
Yes.
So there's 10 teams in the total Division 3 competitions. How many of them have 3 colours in their flags? 4.
Correct.
Hey, lucky guess. Can you tell me which ones they are?
Yes, I will. They are North Korea, red, white, and blue. Luxembourg, red, white, and blue.
Okay.
Thailand, red, white, and blue.
Okay.
And Bosnia and Herzegovina, blue, white, and yellow.
I see. They have to be the different ones, don't they? Okay, fair enough.
Right, so you've got 2 out of 3 so far.
Oh, I'm not doing too bad.
So you'll turn this one into 3 out of 4 because this one's really easy.
Oh, no.
Okay, in hockey and in other sports, 3 goals is called a what?
Is that called a hat trick, Chris?
It is called a hat trick. Well done, yes. Right, that one, I had to give you that easy one to link to the next one.
Got it.
Speaking of hat tricks, which active player in the NHL has the most hat tricks and how many does he have? And I'll give you a hint. The number he has is also a multiple of 3.
I believe it's Connor McDavid, because the reason I know this is because Chris Kreider has scored a pair of hat tricks this season, and I remember the only other player that scored more hat tricks than him on the graph they had was Connor McDavid, and I believe he'd scored 6.
Okay, I'll give you a second bite at that because I meant in their whole career.
Oh, in the whole career.
Season.
Okay. Active NHL players that have scored the most hat tricks?
Player. Yeah, in his career, and the answer is a multiple of 3. So I'll give you a second bite.
That is a great question. An active player with the most hat tricks. I feel like it's either going to be Alexander Ovechkin or Patrick Kane.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go
I'll get their stats up.
With Ovechkin.
Right. And with how many was the other thing I wanted? How many hat tricks? Bear in mind that the number that that person has is a number of 3, is a multiple of 3.
27.
So you're going with Ovechkin 27.
Yes.
The answer is in 16 seasons in the NHL.
Okay.
All with Washington.
Alexander Ovechkin. Boom.
With 27.
Oh! Yes! You didn't think I'd get that, did you, Chris? I mean, to be fair, like, Ovechkin, he recently passed Phil Esposito for 6th or 7th in all-time scoring, so you got to think it's the guy that's got the chance to catch Gretzky who scored the most hat-tricks. But then, like, in terms of knowing how many... yeah, go for it.
The next highest active player is Marin Gaborik. He has 14 hat tricks.
I mean, he's technically not active anymore. He's on the injured reserve list, so...
All right, well, NHL Stats says he's active.
Who's the next one after that?
Eric Stahl.
Really?
Also with 14.
Okay, Eric Stahl.
Yep.
Oh, he's having a great year in Buffalo.
So,
said no one ever.
I mean, fair play to you for getting 1,
Question
2,
wrong.
3, 4, 5 out of like 7.
Drop the mic. Boom.
So I think that's your best week.
And you know what, Chris?
Of, the quiz.
You know what? I think that's a wonderful place to end this week's episode of the Europug podcast.
It's going out on a high.
Absolutely. You know, we may as well retire the podcast now. I'm never going to get any better than that. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. We hope you have enjoyed. Whether you're watching, listening, video version, audio version on your various podcast platforms. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We've gone slightly longer than we usually do, but, you know, we had plenty of stuff to talk about. We'll obviously keep you updated with the playoffs. Chris will get me some more quizzes that I will never do as good as this one anymore. You know what? When I actually get all the questions right, that's when I drop the mic and we stop the podcast, because, you know, like, I'm never going to be able to top that. So, yeah, if you want to keep updated on all things EuroPuck podcast, or send us your thoughts, opinions, or questions, either from today's show or for our next show next week, you can follow the show on Twitter at EuroPuck Podcast, down there on the video version, and that's on Twitter or Instagram at EuroPuck Podcast. Either or both. Why not? And if you enjoyed listening to either or both of your hosts today, which we hope you did, because we've been doing this for about 6 months now, and if you didn't, you should have jumped ship a lot earlier, then you can follow myself on Twitter at OddmanRushYT, or Chris at Chris_Gadsby. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you again next time. Have a good one, folks.